about to share with you is one of my favorite questions to ask to activate a sense of possibility, and it's one that I learned from my dad. The question that he asks is this: if it were just right, what would it look like? Whenever you're feeling stuck, you can ask yourself this question. Hey, if it were just right, let's just imagine in the best case scenario, if whatever this situation is, if engagement were just right, if communication were just right, if the way that our leaders led were just right, what would it look like? What would that look like? If you ask yourself in HR if it were just right, you'd probably say, well, everyone would read the handbook and realize that it applies to them too. Or maybe if it were just right, people would come into your office on a Tuesday morning and be like, hey, I just wanted you to know I love my job. My manager is so emotionally intelligent, and I think I'm getting paid too much. If it were just right, it would look like that. If it were just right, we would take all those fears and those doubts, and you know what we would do? We would turn them into goals. The thing you haven't done, the thing you're afraid of. Imagine if you have asked for that promotion, if you have advocated for yourself, if you are speaking up about what matters to you, if you are grounded and rooted in what you're capable of, if a year from now you have gone for that certification that you have been avoiding and delaying and putting off for whatever reason. Imagine if you turned those fears into goals and what needs to be true of you in order for that to happen. One of the goals that I think a lot of us would have is to make sure we have the support we need to do our job well. And as HR leaders, you are exceptional at doing that for other people. You're like, let me make sure everybody has what they need. It's okay if I don't have anything that I need, but let me make sure everybody else is okay. And interestingly, Brené Brown has done research with 1,000 leaders, and they asked them, they said, what is the behavior of your team members that most leads to trust? And what they discovered in their research really surprised me, and it might surprise you too. And perhaps it could be a goal for some of the people in this room. Asking for help. They found that the behavior of the team member that most leads to trust building is when people ask for help. Because what it does is it recognizes, oh, I have a certain capacity and capability, and I'm aware of that enough to know when I need to go outside of myself to get more support and help. Because the alternative is you don't ask for what you need, and then you end up where I was, and you get totally burned out, and then a bunch of people have to cover for you, and it's a scramble. So being willing to ask for help, maybe that is a goal for yourself. A couple of months after I burned out, I was contacted by somebody who was one of my very, very first mentors in the wellness industry. She was somebody who worked for another benefits consultant, and she was creative and innovative, and she did things differently than everybody else in the industry, and I latched on to people that were like that. I was like, ooh, you're doing something different than everybody else. Tell me more. Her name is Rosie Ward. Some of you may know who she is. And she contacted me because she was getting trained in a certification called Immunity to Change. And immunity to change is basically, the premise behind it is that just like we have a physiological immune system that in the face of threat will activate, we have a psychological immune system that in the face of threat will activate. And it'll cause us to sabotage ourselves and to get in our own way. And so we started working together, and she said, I want you to come up with an improvement goal. So we just talked about goals a second ago. You could think about, what would my improvement goal be? What's the thing that I want to do? And my goal, at the time I was still in my corporate job, and my goal was to trust myself and put my message out there into the world and share that more boldly and consistently. And I was holding myself back. I wasn't doing that as much as I wanted to. And so we started to unpack maybe why that was. And I was afraid of looking disloyal to my employer. I thought, gosh, you know what? Hasn't it already been said before? Like, what am I really adding that somebody else hasn't already said or already done? And I started to doubt myself and share all these doubts with her. And after working together for a few months, we were identifying what is called the big assumption. And the big assumption is the underlying belief that all of you have that is at the root of your self-sabotage, the reason why you're holding back, the reason you haven't done the thing you say you want to do. And so she asked me a question. She said, what are you afraid will happen if you stop holding yourself back and start doing what you want? What are you afraid will happen, Rachel? And I sat with that question and I said, you know what? I'm afraid that if I put myself out there, then people will not accept me, and that whatever I put into the world will not be good enough in some way. And then at that point, well, geez, I won't be impressive. And if I'm not impressive, then who would love me and who would want to be around me? Like, who would love a nobody? I mean, this is the story I told myself. Maybe some of you have been there where you have this thought that if I'm not the most helpful and I'm not the most impressive, then like, what's the point? And I felt that way. And it was really difficult and painful to admit that, but I needed to go to that place. I needed to identify that and then be able to ask myself, wait a second. What if there's more to you? What if there's more capability and strength inside of you that you just haven't leveraged yet that's going to help you do the thing you say you want to do? This is where the illumination comes in. The illumination is about shining a light on our strengths and our capabilities. Shining a light on our strengths and our capabilities. Every single one of you in this room, you are in some way blind to your own brilliance. You have gifts and talents and skills and strengths that you have overlooked